Coming up, 4 serving soldiers arrested on suspicion of neo-Nazi terrorism. Could a ban on cars be the answer to road rage at the school gates? And Meghan Markle says, "I love Harry," in an interview about their special relationship. That and more after the break. 4 British soldiers arrested on suspicion of neo-Nazi terrorism. Police say they're members of the National Action Group, banned for its racist, anti-Semitic and homophobic views. Also this lunchtime, the missed danger signs and warnings ahead of the murder of 21-month-old Aisha by her own mother. Anger at the school gates as councils tackle congestion by banning the drop-off. And Meghan Markle tells a magazine how she's just wild about Harry and calls it love.
This is the ITV Lunchtime News with Alistair Stewart.
Good afternoon. 4 serving members of the British Army are under arrest this lunchtime on suspicion of preparing acts of terror. They're also being held on suspicion of membership of the banned far-right group National Action. West Midlands police say the arrests were pre-planned and intelligence-led, and there had been no threat to the public safety. National Action describes itself as a Nazi-style youth organisation aimed at the broken right wing. Home Secretary Amber Rudd described it as a racist, anti-Semitic and homophobic organisation. Our security editor Rohit Kachru reports.
A demonstration by National Action in Newcastle. But months later, the Home Secretary banned this group. It became not only an extremist organisation, but a terrorist one too.
The battle has come to us. It rages in our towns, our cities.
It used glossy propaganda just like IS or Al-Qaeda. But just like those organisations, membership is banned.
As a despised and persecuted minority.
This lunchtime, the Ministry of Defence confirmed that men arrested on suspicion of being members today were also serving soldiers. We can confirm that a number of serving members of the Army have been arrested under the Terrorism Act for being associated with a prescribed far-right group. These arrests are the consequence of a Home Office police force-led operation supported by the Army. This is now the subject of a civilian police investigation. The group was outlawed after endorsing the murder of the MP Joe Cox. But months later, an ITV News investigation revealed that former members were still meeting.
Are any of the NA lads coming? Or ex-NA?
Garen Helm, a former NA activist, discussed the killing at a far-right training camp. This afternoon, homes are being searched as part of this latest investigation into National Action.
Rohit, this is a dangerously worrying collision of suspicions.
That is the suspicion, yes. And what we're learning from investigators this lunchtime is that, yes, this was an intelligence-led operation. So there was a tip-off. Investigators didn't just stumble across these men. And throughout this operation, they had the support of the Army, who were well aware of what the police were doing. We don't know who these suspects are. We know just that they're aged between 22 and 32. They're from Birmingham, Northampton, Ipswich and North Wales, and they're being questioned in a police station in the West Midlands this lunchtime. Significantly, though, there was no threat to public safety, according to the police in the West Midlands. But what they also say, what is also clear is that 9 months after this group was banned, it was prescribed, it was outlawed, this appears to have been the biggest police operation against it yet.
OK, Rohit, thank you. Authorities failed to spot the signs of danger posed to a little girl who was eventually murdered by her mother after months of abuse. A serious case review into the death of 21-month-old Aisha Jane Smith found that despite a growing sense of unease about the toddler's welfare, risks to her safety were missed, including, it seems, even a warning from her own father. Martha Fairley reports.
Aisha Jane Smith was a lively and loving toddler. Known as AJ, she was killed by her mother during a savage outburst. But care professionals had focused instead on her mother, Catherine Smith, as a potential victim of domestic abuse, overlooking AJ's needs. And a serious case review has found opportunities were missed to protect her in the months before her death.
The attention on the mother was a focus. There should have been far more attention on Aisha Jane and the impact of domestic abuse within that household and how it could impact on her. There was a clear lack of professional curiosity by frontline staff.
At their home in Burton-on-Trent, where AJ should have been safe, her mother stamped on her so hard she tore her heart. Then she called 999.
She's floppy, she's lifeless, she's not breathing.
Can you see her chest moving up and down?
No.
Okay, where is she at the moment?
She's on the floor.
Okay, did you say she was having a seizure?
Yes.
AJ's natural father had taken these photos of marks on her face 5 months before her death, but today's report says he didn't feel his concerns were listened to. In January 2014, a health visitor ordered a child protection medical review after noticing cuts on AJ's face. A month later, she was rushed to hospital with a bleed on the brain, but doctors didn't check for signs of child abuse. In April, social workers discussed but decided against taking her back into care. And on May the 1st, just a day after a multi-risk assessment meeting was called because of a growing sense of unease about her safety, AJ was dead.
It is a really complex job. We safeguard hundreds of children every single day, and most of the time we do it successfully, but one death in these sorts of circumstances is one death too many, and I am determined to ensure that social workers have the right skills moving forward.
Catherine Smith was jailed for life last year for AJ's murder. The toddler's stepfather, Matthew Rigby, was jailed for 3.5 years for allowing her death to happen. And while the serious case review says her death couldn't have been predicted, more steps could have been taken to prevent her murder. Martha Fairley, ITV News.
Aisha's tragic story is sadly not the first high-profile case of social service failures. In the last 5 years, the NSPCC says that it's been involved in at least 15 serious case reviews into the deaths of children, but many go back much further. Among the most high-profile, perhaps, in 2000, Victoria Clombier died after prolonged abuse by a family member. A report into her death found agencies missed at least 12 opportunities that should have saved her life. An overhaul of child protection was called for. Peter Connolly, who was perhaps better known as Baby P, died in 2007 after suffering more than 50 injuries over an 8-month period. Another damning report stated authorities failed to take his safety into care. And Daniel Pelker died from head injuries in 2012. Again, a serious case review found little had been done to protect the child. So why do these failings keep on happening? I'm delighted to be joined live now by Dr. Peter Sidebotham from the University of Warwick. He is a leading researcher into child abuse. I'm going to put it literally that bluntly to you. Case review after case review. Why are we not learning anything?
Well, I think one of the really important things to recognise here is that children's lives are really precious, and a case like Aisha's is tragic and rightly brings out outrage in all of us. The reality is that we are dealing with extremely complex situations, and I think there are important lessons that we need to keep learning in these situations. We're never going to be able to fully prevent all child abuse, but I think there is always more that we can learn and do to tread this difficult balance.
But there is a common theme going through Clombier via Daniel Pelker to this one, and Lord Laming pointed it out, this report points it out again. The signs were there, the lights were flashing. It was they that were missed, not the abuse itself.
I think you're absolutely right. I haven't seen yet this report, but it does appear that there were signs of abuse that were there. And clearly some of the professionals were starting to take this seriously, but clearly in this case not quickly enough. And I think for all professionals, whether it's health professionals, social workers, to have that edge of professional curiosity and challenge while still maintaining a supportive stance towards the families is really important.
Is it conceivable that the very nature of serious case reviews themselves present part of the problem?
I think there is a lot that we can improve in the way we look at and learn from these cases, and there are reforms underway through the Department for Education to look at a different way of approaching learning from these cases. But I think that the reality is there are some lessons that are so important that we actually need to keep learning them and need to keep coming back to these cases so that we can remind ourselves of the importance of these lessons.
Peter Sidebotham from Warwick University, thank you very much for joining us this lunchtime.
Thank you.
Now, Russia has stepped into the North Korean crisis, warning tougher sanctions against the regime would prove useless and achieve nothing. Speaking at a summit in China, Vladimir Putin claimed ramping up military hysteria could lead to global catastrophe. Overnight, South Korea carried out more military drills, a clear warning to the North against any imminent action. North Korea, meanwhile, warned America to expect more unwanted gifts. Lucy Watson has the latest.
Tight smiles and a calm handshake from two men scrambling to contain North Korea and its nuclear threat. Yet a meeting of minds too. China is loath to increase sanctions on their allies and Russia agrees. President Vladimir Putin in China weighing in today.
The use of sanctions of any kind in this case is useless and inefficient. The escalation of military hysteria is completely meaningless. This is a road to nowhere and could lead to a global catastrophe.
But still, there is no let-up in provocation on the Korean peninsula. Today, South Korean warships conducted live fire exercises. Yesterday, there were strikes practiced at dawn. All in retaliation for North Korea's 6th nuclear test on Sunday, its most powerful detonation yet, an achievement signed for and celebrated by its leader Kim Jong-un. These are nations primed for conflict with no resolution in sight, and patience can wear thin. Lucy Watson, ITV News.
Hurricane Irma, which is threatening to reach many Caribbean islands and the United States state of Florida, has been upgraded to a Category 5 storm. Storm's currently making its way across the Atlantic with winds of up to 175 miles an hour expected to hit land in the coming days. In Florida, where a state of emergency has already been declared, residents are stockpiling supplies, while there are fears that Puerto Rico could be left without power for months. An inquest has opened into the deaths of 8 people killed in one of the UK's worst road accidents in decades. The 6 men and 2 women died last month after 2 lorries collided with a minibus on the M1 near Milton Keynes. Well, Sejal Carrier has been at the inquest for us this morning. And Sejal, you've been finding out more details about the victims.
Yes, that's right. The inquest heard that all 8 died of multiple injuries and were only identified by their fingerprints. All of their bodies will now be repatriated to India. We also learnt officially their identities. The 5 male passengers in the minibus were 63-year-old Paneer Selvam Anamalai, 58-year-old Subramaniam Arachelvan. Also, there were 3 Nottingham-based IT workers who lost their lives: Rishi Rajiv Kumar, Vivek Bhaskaran and Karthikeyan Ramasubramaniam. Among the dead were also 2 female passengers. They were Tamil Mani Arachelvan and Lavinia Lakshmi Sitharaman. The driver of the minibus was also killed. He was Syriac Joseph, a father of 2 who came from Nottingham. Today, a relative, Matthew John, paid this tribute to him.
He was a great father, very family-oriented person, very active in the church, in the communities. And when somebody needs anything, and he's there for them. So it's a big loss for, not just for that family, it's a big loss for the community as well.
The inquest heard they died when the minibus they were travelling on was forced to stop in lane 1 of the M1 near Milton Keynes, blocked by a stationary lorry in front when a second lorry hit their minibus from behind. 4 other passengers remain seriously injured in hospital, including a 4-year-old girl. The drivers of both lorries have been charged with multiple counts of causing death by dangerous driving, and one of the drivers has also been charged with causing their deaths while being over the drink-drive limit.
Sejal, thank you. Still to come is a ban on cars, the answer to road rage at the school gates, and
it's too scary. Take it away.
why this episode of Peppa Pig has been banned down under. But first, 24 hours after the announcement of another royal baby, Meghan Markle has spoken for the first time of her love for the other brother, Harry. In an interview with Vanity Fair magazine, she got tongues wagging about another royal wedding by talking of their special, happy relationship and of love. Well, our royal editor, Chris Shipp, is here. So, a new hat for Her Majesty.
Quite possibly, Alistair. Well, look, we had babies yesterday, didn't we? Today, the talk has moved to potential weddings, and I'll tell you why. So, Meghan Markle, as we've known for some time now, is Prince Harry's girlfriend. For anyone who doesn't know, she is in the American TV series Suits. She lives in Toronto, and the pair have been going out for about a year. Now, she's given an interview to Vanity Fair, in which she's very explicit about quite how serious this relationship is. There, you can see her there on the front cover of the magazine. So these are her words. We're two people who are really happy and in love, she says. We were very quietly dating for about 6 months before it became news, and obviously it became big news when it was announced. If you remember back to the end of last year, Alistair, Kensington Palace has to issue quite a explosive statement when they spoke about Prince Harry wanted to protect her and look after her and all the rest of it. And what Ms Markle also says, again repeating the phrase "we're in love," I'm sure there will be a time when we will have to come forward and present ourselves. What does she mean by that? Well, potentially they could mean come forward and announce some sort of engagement. But also, Prince Harry is going off to Toronto in a couple of weeks' time for the Invictus Games, the games involving injured soldiers. Toronto is the city in which she lives and films the US TV series Suits. You can see it all coming together, can't you?
Indeed. Well, there'll be lots of lenses clicking when that happens, I'm sure. But positive development on that front for William and Catherine today.
Yeah, a little bit more of a serious story, this one. Yes. But and some of it's connected to Diana. Last week we spoke a lot about the anniversary of Diana's death last week. But the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge have been awarded the maximum damages in a Paris court to do with some photographs of Kate, the Duchess of Cambridge, when she was pictured topless, sunbathing topless at a private chateau in the south of France. And at the time, William said, particularly everything that's been around with my mother's death, he found this particularly shocking. So the French-based magazine Closer has had to pay 100,000 euros in damages. That's about £96,000. And that we're waiting for some sort of response from Kensington Palace, but that has gone their way.
All right. Chris, thank you. A woman's been charged with fraud after allegedly claiming that she was a survivor of the Grenfell Tower fire in order to receive support from the emergency fund. 46-year-old Joyce Musakera, who lives in Sutton in South London, will appear in court later facing 6 counts of fraud. The emergency fund was set up following the fire, which claimed 80 lives and left hundreds more homeless. Lego's announced that it'll cut 1,400 jobs worldwide. The Danish toy company claimed a 6% fall in revenues over the past year, following its first fall in sales in over a decade. And the family of Sir Bruce Forsyth, who died last month, has revealed that a private funeral was held yesterday. The ceremony was attended by close family and friends. A public memorial service is also being planned. Next this lunchtime, if you've got children who've gone back to school today, you might well have experienced rage at the school run. Well, one council in the West Midlands has had enough of stress on its street, so it's banned parents at 3 schools from driving to the gates. It's not the first council in the country to do it, but offenders can pick up a £100 fine, and, not surprisingly, the policy is already dividing opinion. Here's Mark McQuillan.
The start of a new term and the return of the busy school run
except the roads have been uncharacteristically quiet here as a ban on vehicles using the surrounding streets near 3 schools in the West Midlands comes into force, a move driven by safety and parking concerns.
You see parents come up the road clearly looking for somewhere to park. Generally speaking, when they do, and it's kind of a free-for-all, and they come up and they just park where they can, which does involve sometimes encroaching on people's drives and certainly parking on pavements.
The scheme in Solihull follows similar initiatives across the country. Back in 2015, Edinburgh Council introduced a ban outside 9 schools in the city. While in London earlier this year, Hackney Council banned parents from parking outside 5 schools in the borough. And in Westminster, which suffers from the worst air pollution in the country, no idling zones have been brought in, where parents can be charged for leaving their engines running. Drivers who break the rules in Solihull could be fined, but some who are affected by the scheme are worried about how it will impact on them.
I don't park irresponsibly like most parents. I don't block driveways, I don't block the pavement. There are a small minority that do that, and the rest of us are having to pay the price for that small minority, and it's actually putting our children's safety at risk and displacing the problem to other places.
But the council hope the move will actually improve safety and lead to more children walking or cycling to school.
A lot of parents are supporting the scheme because of the benefit to the safety of their children. I recognise that there has been some concern from other residents who may suffer from displacement of parking.
No, you can't come down in the vehicle during school times, OK?
The trial could last for up to 18 months. It will then be made permanent, modified or scrapped. Mark McQuillan, ITV News.
And finally this lunchtime, an episode of Peppa Pig has been banned in Australia over suggestions that spiders are not dangerous.
It's too scary. Take it away.
There's no need to be afraid, Peppa. Spiders are very, very small and they can't hurt you. But don't worry, Daddy will take it out of the bedroom.
Well, the episode called Mr. Skinny Legs was taken off air by a broadcaster down under because parents worried it could convince their children to play with spiders, which in Australia, to be blunt, isn't such a good idea. And that is it this lunchtime. Mary Nightingale will be here with the ITV Evening News at 6:30. The news where you are follows the national weather. But for now, from all of us, goodbye and have a great afternoon. Bye-bye.
Whatever the weather, SSE Boiler Service sponsors the national weather.
Hello, a very good afternoon to you. Quite a grey day for many of us with some really heavy rain across parts this morning. It's an improving picture this afternoon. A smattering of showers, drizzle for some of us, and a bit of brightness here and there too. 22, 23 Celsius further south, some very gusty winds around the Devon and Cornwall coast this afternoon, and fresher, cooler, brighter conditions across northern and western areas as we end the day. Overnight tonight becoming largely dry. There'll be some breaks in the cloud, and it's a fresher night than last night, down to around 10 or 11 Celsius for many places as we go through the night. And then for tomorrow, I think we're looking at the best day of the week. Largely dry across England and Wales with some bright or sunny spells. A few showers, generally restricted to northern and western areas once again through the day. And temperatures still doing very well in the southeast, up to around 20 or 21 Celsius. Looking ahead to the rest of the week, it becomes increasingly unsettled with showers and perhaps some wet and windy conditions on Saturday night. Goodbye.
Whatever the weather, SSE Boiler Service sponsors the national weather.